Hey guys, welcome to my Wild Coyote. I put this video together to kind of help folks that were considering getting a thumb for their backhoe. This thumb is specific to the Kioti backhoes, and I ordered it from the dealer rather than trying to go with the aftermarket one. And this video is about me trying to work my way through installing the backhoe thumb. Unfortunately, my first video for the channel, this one, the sound wasn't working on my phone, and so I'm basically going to do a voiceover and narrate what I'm doing. At this point, I'm just back unpacking the box and pulling the parts out, trying to figure out what's what. And pretty much everything that is in the box is pretty self-explanatory, although there were not any instructions. And so I did have to work my way through of trying to figure out what made sense, what went where. It was a 17-inch millimeter socket. Those are the jaws for the thumb that I have there. And like I said, no instructions. I did take a second look in the box there just to see. And then I just kind of laid everything out and tried to figure out how it would go. After watching some other YouTube videos on other thumbs and how people installed them, I figured out that you need to put the backhoe bucket down on the ground and attempt to take the weight off of it, and so it's easier to take the bolt out and so on. Obviously I did loosen the bolt with a 17-inch millimeter before I started the video, just to try to speed things up a little bit. And then we tap out that big bolt or pin first before you get started. And I think that's the only leftover part I ended up having was that pin from the top of the bucket. The pin that they send you obviously is longer because it goes through the thumb and the bucket. And so you tap that one out and grease up the new one and push it in. That's the tricky part, is getting that new pin in, holding the thumb in place, and then also holding the bucket in place while you get those in. It goes in super smooth the first time, and that made me very suspicious. And the reason for that is because usually when it goes in easy the first time, it's because you're forgetting something. Not knowing that I was forgetting something because there weren't any instructions. But what I did notice after I get this first pin in is that there was a gap with the new pin of about the width of a single washer that was in the install kit. And I came to the conclusion that that washer was supposed to go in to that space. And so ultimately I end up taking it back apart and putting that washer in. But you'll see this first time, after I pull the pin, the bucket drops back. We set that pin aside and grease up the new pin and put it in. Here I'm just talking about how it has a grease fitting on it, and it greases up the pin, and the new pin has that as well. So I did end up putting a little bit of grease on it to get it in, and then later greased it up some more. So like I said, I put the pin in. It was real easy the first time, and I realized that washer was missing. So I went ahead and speed this section up, because you'll get to see the pin go in a second time when I figure out that, hey, I should have put this washer in. But this is me putting the pin in the first time. Okay, here we are, round two, with pulling the pin, putting it back in with the washer on it. And as I indicated earlier, the first time went very smoothly, and that was because the washer wasn't in there. And so we're up for the second round here. It does not go as smoothly as the first time. You can see I put the new washer on. I put it on the left-hand side because it seemed that that was where the gap was. The bucket really didn't move back and forth. It just had a gap right there. So it made sense to me that the washer went there. Ultimately, I figured out between physically moving the bucket and holding it up with my leg, and then getting a bigger hammer. I still used a rubber mallet, but getting a bigger hammer and just tapping on it gently as I lined it up, got it in there pretty easily. It was a little bit more wrestling than it was, like I said, the first time. Same bolt. It was actually the original bolt that came on there. I want to say there's a little bit more threads exposed than what was exposed originally without the thumb on there. And so we get that tightened down, and also I took a break in the video just to kind of lay out the parts again to see how they would fit. And each of the arms fit only one way, and so that made it easier for somebody like me to determine how they go. The whole install took about 30 minutes, even with my messing around and doing the thumb twice. Finally figured out the pins. The pins that go through the thumb have washers, or I should say kind of washers that go over rubber seals. And so those, I guess they're not really greased necessarily or need grease fittings because they're not really moving parts. They're just basically where you set the thumb when you adjust it to where you want it. And so right here I'm just putting that main pin in, and then I'll pick up, like I said, the rubber seal with the washer that goes over it, and then the bolt. And I think there's 3 of those, and they go into each side. You can see here I'm just putting together the adjustment arm and putting it in place to where it goes. And it wasn't too bad after this. It went pretty smoothly. Just tightening those things down and figuring out how the adjustment worked. Here I'm showing the rubber seal with the washer. I just kind of sped this up because it's a little monotonous of actually watching it, but it's pretty basic. I realize the camera is probably a little bit closer than it should be, but you get the idea. The bucket was picked up, like I said earlier, at the dealership. I ordered it from them, and it was $333 for the kit. And like I said, it's from Kioti. I'm not sure who makes it for Kioti, but it's designed to fit on the Kioti bucket and also on that metal piece that you see at the top of the screen that comes on the bucket from the factory. And so it's basically a direct install other than pulling that top pin. Everything else just bolts on. And then I had the opportunity, once I got it in place, I'm having some cedar trees taken out and limbed on the property, and I think we took out 3 or 4 trees, and so I was able to go out and actually utilize the thumb. And one of the trees got cut into a barbed wire fence, so it was laying down in the fence, and I was able to reach over the fence and actually work the log out with the thumb and the backhoe without having to cut the fence, and with also not something I could have done with the bucket or the trash forks on the bucket. So it's kind of a neat thing. And it's pretty amazing the lifting capability of the backhoe. I didn't drive too much with a load on it. In other words, picking up a log or picking up debris and then driving with it. Particularly a heavy load, because it just didn't feel all that great. But for actually moving stuff and picking up stuff, I was pretty impressed with its capability and its ability to move and grab stuff. You can see kind of how it lays out. That's kind of the middle adjustment. There's another adjustment above that, obviously, that you can completely put it out of the way. And so I'll end the video with a photo of a couple logs that I lifted and moved and pulled out of a debris field. And maybe I'll do another video later on the actual use of it, some video movement of actually using it. But that's about it. Thanks for watching.